Hello, dear students. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Jayendra Rangjong classes. Dear students, we are continuing the second chapter in this plant physiology part, that is mineral nutrition. Okay, so we are going to start today a new chapter of plant physiology, that is the mineral nutrition. We know about that, how the water and mineral get transported to the different plant parts that we have discussed in the previous chapter. But how these minerals are important, what are the minerals have their important roles, how they cause some of the diseases, and what are their significant roles, that all can be actually discussed in this chapter. So first we are going to talk about the methods to study the mineral requirement of the plants. And as we know, the basic need of all living organisms are essentially the same. They require macromolecules such as carbohydrate, protein, fat, and water and mineral for their growth and development. So minerals are also required for the growth and development. So if you talk about the methods which help us to study the mineral requirement of the plant, in which we will see that the basic need is of the organism is essentially the same that we have just discussed. Okay, all either it is plant, animal, birds, anything. And all living organisms require macromolecules such as carbohydrate, protein, fat, water molecule for their growth and development. Now, if we talk about the methods to study this mineral requirement of the plant, in 1860, if you talk about the history to study for the study of this mineral nutrition, then in 1860 one scientist was there whose name is Julius von Such, a prominent German botanist, who for the first time who demonstrated that plants could be grown to a maturity in a defined nutrient solution. Plants can be grown in a defined nutrient solution. See, you should focus on this one. They could be grown in a defined nutrient solution till maturity. And a complete absence of soil, that is soil-less culture, that was first observed by Julius von Suss. Means Julius was such the first scientist who seen that the plant can be grown up to the maturity without the soil or in the absence of soil. And this technique of growing plants in a nutrient solution is known as hydroponics. So the setup culture we will study, but you should write here that the important point that this technique, this technique of growing plants, this technique of growing plants in nutrient solution is known as hydroponics. Okay. Now, to carry out this hydroponic, where the soil without soil, the nutrient solution, so nutrient solution without soil, the plants are going to be grown. So if you talk about the diagrammatic setup of a nutrient solution culture, then you can see this setup will be like this. So this in this setup you will see this is a pot, and in this here it is particularly properly sealed, and this contain a nutrient solution. Now this nutrient solution contain minerals plus water, and soil is not there. Apart from this, this is a potted plant. Okay, the cotton is placed here, then aerating tube is placed here. Okay, this provide oxygen, and this funnel is inserted here for adding a water and nutrients again as because they are going to be decreased in this pot as the plant uses it. Okay, so here this is the setup. Now in this setup you can see what is required, and that are known as requirements of hydroponics. And if we talk about requirements of hydroponics, then the requirement are number one, that is purified water. Number two is mineral nutrient salts. Okay, and third, aeration. That is, the nutrient solution must be adequately aerated to obtain the optimum growth, and that is the what particularly we can say the hydroponic technique. Now, so what is hydroponics? That we have understood from this that it is a technique of growing plant in a specified nutrient solution in known as hydroponics, and without a soil, obviously. And if hydroponics, you want to see this chamber, this is also showing a hydroponics. You can see here. This is the particularly watery condition. From this, the water and mineral nutrient are added, okay, and from here they are particularly removed. Some get removed and some get again used, and this is a hydroponic chamber where a number of plants are growing here. Okay, such a way this condition can be seen. Now, so number of methods, if we talk, number of methods have been employed and try to determine the mineral nutrient essential for the plant. Which minerals are helpful, which minerals are essential, vital for the plant. That number of methods have been employed. And one method is this particular one, that is a particularly hydroponics. Hydroponic setup we have discussed. In the hydroponic plant production, this is the one of the important technique when the plants are grown in a tube or a tub placed on the slight incline. See, this is the incline on this particularly plants are placed in these chambers. And here this whole line is connected with the pump. Okay, suppose this is the line. This is line here connected with the pump. That pump will provide or circulate a nutrient solution from the reservoir to the elevated end of the tube, and the solution flows in such a way. Okay, so this is what we can say nutrient film technique or hydroponic technique. Now, the essence of all these methods involves the culture of plants in a soil-free defined mineral solution, obviously, and this is the one a more example of this particular hydroponics. And this methods required purified water and a mineral nutrient salt. Obviously, this is the requirement, and along with there is a requirement of the what some of the we can say the aeration. So the question is, why here we are using a purified water and the mineral nutrient salts that are used we are using for this, why they are required. So this is important to understand. So this question we will address. So we remember in the hydroponic things we have seen that the roots of the plants were immersed in a nutrient solution. Okay, and wherein an element was added or removed or given in a varied concentration, a mineral solution suitable for the plant growth was obtained. Okay, such a way proper mineral nutrition are provided. And by this method, essential elements were identified and their deficient symptoms were discovered. That all will also help. This particular hydroponics will help in this also. Okay. So hydroponics has been successfully employed as a technique for the commercial production of vegetables. In commercial, it is also applicable for the production of vegetables like tomato, seedless cucumber, and the we can say the lettuce. For all this hydroponics is commercially used. It must be emphasized that the nutrient solution must be adequately added for optimum growth. Okay. So this is the thing. Now, so the question which I told you that we need to address now. So what is the question? Question is, why purified water and mineral nutrient salts, are essential in hydroponics. Now the answer to this is that why it is needed, because any contamination or impurity can cause infection in plant. can cause infection in plant, which result in growth retardation. And because of this, it is known that the purified water and mineral content are required to avoid this contamination. Now, the question is, what is the significance and application? So, if we talk about the significance and application of this hydroponics, then you will come to know that this hydroponics will help to identify essential elements. So, to identify essential elements. Second is to identify deficiency symptoms or to discover deficiency symptom of essential element. And third, the significance we will here use. So it is used in commercial production of vegetables. So for all this particular hydroponics can be used. Okay. Now, after this, we have to discuss some more things. And this, after hydroponics, if you talk, the technique of growing plant in specific nutrient solution, that is hydroponics, that way it is not hydrotropic. Tropic is a growth, phobic is a fear, and the philic is a solubility or love. But ponics is outward, particularly soilless cultural growth. Hydroponics method required, obviously, it required a soil free medium and the defined mineral solution. So, fourth will be the correct answer. Now we are going talking here. We are using the word essential mineral element. So the question is, what is essential mineral element? Why we are calling them essential? So all that things we are going to understand here in this part. If we talk about essential mineral element, most of the minerals present in a soil can enter a plant through the root. Obviously, root increases the root hair, and that increases the surface area of absorption. And root have a main role of absorption of minerals from the soil. So most of the minerals are absorbed like this. Okay, the roots will absorb, okay, and that will reaches to the different plant. In fact, more than 60 elements are found in different plants. In different plants, if you search, more than 60 elements are there. Okay, and they have different roles and they have different effects. But some plant species accumulate selenium, some plant have a specific. Okay, some plant, if you talk, they have a specific functions, and some plant species accumulate selenium. Okay, and if we talk about that plant species which is store accumulating selenium, the example of the plant species which store selenium is the astragalus. And some also store gold, while some plant growing near nuclear test sites take up the radioactive strontium. Some which are growing near about to the nuclear sites, they particularly store, absorb and store this particular one, we can say. So now the thing is that, so this is the thing how this different selenium can be absorbed, and it is also known that this selenium, if you talk, that is absorbed by the astragalus. Okay, apart from this gold, that is obviously a particular one, the important one stored by this one, the higher plants. Okay, and they have gold particles, and there are technique There are available technique that has a capacity or they are able to detect the mineral even at a very low concentration, that is a 10 is to minus 8 gram per ml. They can particularly, we can say, detect this concentration at this very low concentration. The very low concentration they can also detect. Okay. Apart from this, you will see that other elements like sodium, sodium which is found in case of the Atriplex plant. Okay. Apart from this, silicon is found in the grasses. Then cobalt is found in the legumes and selenium in the astragalus that we have discussed. This all plants store these particular elements, and these all are considered as beneficial elements. They are beneficial elements. They have some more benefit than their essentiality. So these beneficial elements are required by higher plants specifically for their specific physiological activities. Okay, so this is the thing that happens in case of here. Now, after this, if we talk further, we have to define the criteria of essentiality. Means out of there are 60 elements. Out of 60, we are 60 elements which are found in plant. We are calling the 17 element as an essential element. Now the question is why we are calling only 17 as an essential element. And if you have to put any element in a in a particular in the category of essential element, then there should be a criteria. So if we talk about the criteria of essentiality, that include these points. So the criteria of essentiality of an element are given below and include the first one, that whatever the element which we are going to tell as an essential element, that element must be absolutely necessary for supporting a normal growth. It should be able to support a normal growth and reproduction. And in the absence of the element, the plant do not complete their life cycle or sort the seed. It should be also there that without that particular element, plant should not complete their life cycle, or in the absence of the element, the plant do not complete their life cycle or sort the cell. Then it is obviously an essential element because the plant is not covering its functions without the that element. So it is obvious essentiality criteria. The first one. The second one is the requirement of the element must be specific and not replaceable by the another element. In other words, the deficiency of any one element cannot be made by us applying the sum of other element. Suppose a particular plant is there, and in that there is a deficiency of, we can say, there is a deficiency, we can say, of what a particular magnesium, and now we are supplying the iron. Then iron is not able to meet the deficiency of magnesium. To recover the deficiencies of the magnesium, what we need to add or supply to the plant, we have to supply magnesium. Means the element requirement is specific and is obviously not replaceable by the another element. And the third criteria is the element must be directly involved in the metabolism of plant. It should have a direct involvement in the metabolism of the plant. So these three are the important essentiality criteria which are used to define any element as a essential element. And these elements are further divided into two groups. Now, these essential elements are there. You should remember one important point, that based on above criteria, 17 elements have been found to be absolutely essential for the normal growth and metabolism. So these 17 elements are considered as an essential element. Now, if there are 17 essential elements are there are 17 essential elements are there. Okay. So we have to talk further about this essential element. Now it is known that The essential elements are further categorized or divided into two broad categories based on that quantitative requirement, means how much quantity plant need. Based on this, these particular elements are divided into two categories. And in that, the first category is the macronutrient and the another category is the micronutrient. But that is based on the quantitative requirement. Now the first one is the macronutrient. If you talk about the macronutrient, they are generally required by the plant. Macronutrients specifically are macro means high, macro means large. So obviously they are required generally. The macronutrients are generally present in plant tissue in large amount, and that is in excess of 10 millimole per kilogram of dry matter. Means they are generally required in plant tissue in large amount. That is 10 millimole per kilogram of dry matter. And if you talk about this essential element, this macro element, the macro element or macronutrient consists of nine elements, and these nine elements are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. You have to remember this nine element, very important one. Okay, and these are the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. These nine are there. Now, out of this nine, if we talk, the framework element are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. This carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are considered as a framework element because they are mainly obtained from CO2 and H2O. Okay, and they are constituent of the protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Because of this, they are considered as a framework element. So why they are considered framework element? So this carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are there. They are they are main constituent. They are main constituent of protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Okay, this because of this they are known as framework element. So these are absorbed from the atmosphere as a CO2 and water. Other all are absorbed from the soil. So other are absorbed from the soil as a mineral nutrient. So this all are the particularly one. Now in this, if we talk about the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, they are considered as a protoplasmic element. So next is protoplasmic elements. And these protoplasmic elements are main constituent of are main constituent of organic part of protoplasm. Organic part of protoplasm. And the examples of this protoplasmic element include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. These all are the protoplasmic element. Apart from this, some are also known as critical element. Okay, that we will discuss. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, they are framework element that we have discussed already. Others, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium, these all other elements are also there which are macronutrient. Now in that there is a critical element. One category is critical elements. Now if we talk about the critical elements, they are required by plant in high doses. Critical element, they are required by plants in high doses. They are required by plant in a high doses. And to fulfill this great demand, To fulfill that great demand, soil mostly faces shortage of such element, shortage of such elements. Therefore, farmers frequently supply farmers frequently supply them in form of fertilizers, in form of fertilizers to obtain optimum crop yield. So they are having this obviously shortage because they are needed by planting so much amount. And if we talk about the example of such critical element, they are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are the important critical elements. Now we have discussed about the gold, the very low concentration of gold. It is not macro element. It is reported in aqueous atom. That you should remember. Aqueous atom is a pteridophyte and mustard plant. Okay. So these are that. Now out of this, it is also known that 98%, if we talk, 98% about of mass of every of mass of every living organism is composed of six elements, including carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. So this all are combined forming a 98% of the what we can say the organism. So this is all about the macronutrient mainly. Now we are going to talk about the micronutrient. Micronutrient, micro means small. So obviously these micronutrient are also known as trace element and they are needed in very small amount. Now the question is how much small amount? So that is less than 10 millimole per kilogram of dry matter. Okay, so they are needed in this small quantities by the plant. So they are obviously having a small concentration in the plants. Now, in this, the micronutrients which are needed in small amounts by plant, they are usually supplied by fertilizers. Okay, and that include iron, manganese, boron, molybdenum, carbon, copper, zinc, and chlorine. The eight elements are there which are micronutrient or trace element, and they are obviously particularly obtained from the soil. Now, in these eight elementary micronutrients include the iron, manganese, copper, molybdenum, zinc, boron, chlorine, and nickel. These eight are the particularly we can say the micronutrient. Now, out of this eight, it is also known that specifically out of eight, iron is required in large amounts. Is required in large amounts in comparison to other micronutrient. In comparison to micronutrient or microelement, the iron is obviously required in large amount. And now compared to this, if you talk, another element is the molybdenum. That molybdenum that is required in minimum quantity. So that is what about the micronutrient and macronutrient. So this is the two categories. Now, in addition to the 17 essential elements, there are some beneficial elements that we have discussed already: sodium, silicon, cobalt, selenium. They are required by higher plant that we have discussed: sodium, then cobalt, selenium, and silicon. From which plant they are obtained, that we have also discussed. Now, essential element can be grouped into, now this is based on the quantitative. Now, another classification of this essential element is there, but that is classified into broad categories on the basis of the diverse functions. And based on the diverse function, they are categorized into different groups. And in that, the first categories in these categories are, and the first category is that essential element that are biomolecule, and hence that are actually components of biomolecule. They are components of biomolecule, and hence are the structural element of the cell. So if we talk about this structural component, structural element, then it is a carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, which are involved in making a biomolecule or a structural component of the cell. So that is the first category. Next, after that, the second category is the essential elements that are component of energy related component. They are essential of biomolecule, but apart from that, they are also a component of energy related compound in the plant. And the two elements are involved in such mechanism. That is, the magnesium is a part of chlorophyll, and the phosphorus is a part of ATP. So these both are the energy compound, energy related compound. So in this is more. Now see, this is the structure of chlorophyll, in which magnesium is found in the center, and this is the structure of ATP, where phosphate is found. Three phosphates are found, phosphorus are found. There is a tri, because of this we call it as a triphosphate, and the energy currency of the cell. Now, after this, the third category is that the essential element act as an activator or a inhibitor of the enzymes. Means they are particularly acting as a cofactor of the enzyme. Either they will activate or they will inactivate. In this, if we take example, the magnesium element is an activator for both, that is Mg plus 2, activator of both ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. So this ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase is nothing but a rubisco. And another element is a phosphoenol pyruvate carboxylase, that is a PP carboxylase, or we can call it as a pepcase. We can call it as a pepcase. And both of which are critical enzyme in the photosynthetic carbon fixation. They are required importantly in the C3 and C4 plants. Okay, specifically. So they are involved in the what particular important photosynthetic functions. Apart from this, you will see this is the RUP. This is the particularly we can say the rubisco or RUP carboxylase we can say, and this is the particular RUP substrate binding to the enzyme. And for this, the magnesium is required. Now, zinc is also found. Zinc is also acting as activator of the alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. This alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme we will study in the respiration chapter during the alcoholic fermentation. Now, apart from this, the molybdenum is also found. Molybdenum is a particularly component of a nitrogenase during the nitrogen metabolism. Okay, so this is the one category. Okay, so this is zinc deficiency. Now, apart from this, the other function is that some element are also alter the osmotic potential of cell. Now, osmotic potential means that is a solute potential. And in the previous chapter, we have understood that osmotic potential or solute potential is the what, lowering of water potential due to the addition of solute. So it is the magnitude of solute to lower the water potential is the solute potential. So in this, we have already understood that potassium is important for the opening of stomata. So potassium play an important role in opening and closing of the stomata. So such mechanism you can see here that we have studied in the previous one, that is a closed stomata if the water is lost out. K plus and water are coming out. When K plus comes inside, it forms solute concentration is increased in the guard cell, and due to this, water intake occurs and the guard cell swells and opening of stomata occurs, which we have already studied in the previous class, previous chapter. Okay, so these are all the different diverse functions of these particular elements. Okay, so let's discuss the mineral present in soil and which can enter a plant through. Obviously, they are entering through the roots. Some technique are able to detect my mineral concentration even at it is a very low concentration, that is 10 raised to minus 8 gram per ml. Which elements play important role in opening and closing of stomata? Just we have discussed. Obviously, it is the potassium which play a role. Okay, so that is all about what particularly hydroponics and the essential mineral elements. Now, from the next chapter, we will be talking about their functions, their deficiency symptoms, and their mobility, and all this we are going to study in the next class. Okay, till that, thank you.